Now let's look at mixing. Mixing is similar to variable in that we can also store and reuse value. The difference being that in the case of mixing, we can store multiple values. That is, we could store an entire selector that usually or typically will contain one or more declarations. What's the scenario why we might use a mixing? Let's look at our index.html file. Now I have updated things here. I've created a main container, created a header with a class of hero, and I've moved in the heading one in the previous exercise into the header. And here I have an anchor tag here, and I want to style this anchor tag to be like a button. And I also know that it is possible that I have other places in my application or website where I also would have this sort of button that I want to apply the same style to. Rather than create the style in all of those other places, I can create a mixin and reuse it in those other places. Back to our main.scss, and let me use the opportunity to create a couple more variables. I want color white, color black. Okay, so now I can create my mixin somewhere here. To create a mixin is simple. All I need to do is to use the @ symbol followed by the word mixin and the mixin name. I want to call it CTA, short for call to action. Now, since I'm trying to create selector for a button, let me give it a background color and let it use the color green. And if it's a background of green, the text should be white. So color. I want to have a font size of 14 pixels. I want to have a font weight of bold. I want to have a padding 10 pixels. Up and down 12 pixels, left and right. Because it's an anchor tag, I want to remove that default text declaration or text decorations of underline, none. And because I may also use this same mixin to target button, that is HTML button that has border by default, let me also target the border by setting it to none. Now, so how do I consume this mixin or how do I reference this mixin? If you take a look at our index.html, we have a selector called button here. So I will have button. To reference that mixin, I just need to say use the include directive and the mixin name, CTA, and that's all. It's as simple as that. Let me give it a save. Now, if you look at what we've done, it is similar to copying the entire selectors, the entire declaration here. It's as though we copied this entire declaration and paste it over here. That's what we've done. All right. That's how a mixin can be created and referenced. Now, if you take a look at our style.css, you see that that's what has happened actually. The styles or the declarations we created for the mixin are copied over to the button selector. And our mixin is nowhere to be found here actually, because mixin is SASS specific. So our mixin is created here, and we reference it here. If I save this now and take a look at the browser, I should have that apply. There you go. We have our button style. So if I need this same design of the button or this style of the button in other parts of my application, it's a matter of just reusing this same mixin without having to create it. If you look at that now, that's pretty similar to what variable avails us. All right. The only difference is that in the case of mixin, I can reuse an entire block of declarations like so. Okay. So now, but things may not be this simple. That is, what if I have a different design of this button, right? Right now, the button has a background color of green and a text color of white. What if I want a button that doesn't have a background color, but I need a border, right? But I want to maintain every other thing. In that case, do I have to also create mixin for it separately? Well, you can if you're just starting out, but one thing we could do is to create a mixin that has or that receives argument. What's an argument? If you're coming from programming or if you've done any kind of programming before, an argument kind of additional information that helps our functions to do its tasks. Okay, but I just want to keep it low because it's possible you've never done any programming before. So now I can create a mixin that accepts argument such that at the time I reference the mixin, I just pass in the argument. So to do that, let me comment out this, but first let me go to my index.html. Let's say now I want another button. This time, let me copy this. And instead of lemon, let's say the text is sign up. Sign up. Okay. But this time around, because they are both having the selector button now, I have to find a way of modifying this second one so that I can style it differently. So let's say I call this button dash sign up. Button sign up back in my main.scss. So what can I do now? This time around, I want that second button, the sign up button, to be without a background color. That is, I want a background color of white there, and I want a border. I want a text color green instead of white here. Now, if you look at that, those are three properties I have mentioned there. I want a background color of white, a text color of green, and a border of green also, because I want to create a different design of that button. Now, let me comment this out and recreate this mixin, but let me copy it first, then comment it out. Let me recreate the mixin here, but this time with 3 arguments passed in. Let me call first one BG, short for background color. Second, say CL, short for color. And the third one, let me call it BD for border. Okay. Now, instead of now having color green here, I will pass in the variables that I just declare here, or the arguments that I have here. So instead of color green here, I will have BG. And instead of color white here, I will have CL. And finally, for border, instead of none here, I will have, maybe I want 2 pixel solid BD for border. With this in place, whenever I need to reference this CTA this time around, I will have to pass in those values. So it means that here now, where I reference that, but again, let me comment this out and recreate it. So here now, where I reference this CTA, I just pass in the actual parameters. So this time, I want the background color green, I want a background color to be white. So where I have BG, I will have color white there. And the text color, I will have color green. And for the border, I also want color green. This is actually for the second one. Let me copy it. And this is for the second one. So let me say dash 2. For the first one, here, I want color green. That's for background. And here, I want color white for text. And here, because I do not have a border for the first button, I can just literally put none here. That's the value. All right. Now, if I save this and go to my browser, let's see how things are there. Okay, let's check what has happened there. I still have the background color here. Let me check what has happened. Maybe you've seen it yourself. Color white. Why does that not apply? Text color green. Oh, sorry. This was actually called button sign up. Button sign up, not 2. Okay, so let me confirm that. Yeah, button sign up. Okay, so if I save now and go back, refresh. Yeah. So there you go. You see now that we have a different design of the button. And I was able to achieve this without creating another mixin separate for it. I just had to create a mixin that accepts a couple of arguments, and at the time I reference each one, I just pass in the value I need. So if I have to use this design now, this button, this version of the button somewhere in my project, all I just need to do, reference CTA, pass in the colors that I want. If I don't want color green, color white, color green, and green for different argument, whatever color I want, I can pass them in. And so with these one declarations of CTA, I've been able to address multiple designs of my button. So that's the beauty of mixin in SASS. So with mixin, you're able to reuse an entire block of code, the ordinary mixin, and if you want a variation of a particular element, then you could create a mixin that receives argument. And at the time you reference the mixin, you just passed in the actual value that you want for the specific implementation or the specific instance of that element. So that's mixin.